Poor Waitress helped a grumpy old man without knowing. He was the CEO's father. "Hey, sir, are you okay?" Zainab asked as she hurried over, shaking out her umbrella to shield him from the heavy rain. The man barely looked up. He was sitting on the concrete sidewalk, leaning against the damp wall of a closed pharmacy, his clothes completely soaked, shoes missing, and face hidden behind a disheveled grey beard. He mumbled something unintelligible impatiently and turned his face away as if even the sound of her voice was too much. Zainab crouched slightly, not caring that her waitress uniform was already wet. The man's smell was strong, a mix of dirt, rain, and days without a bath, but she didn't flinch. She held the umbrella over his head and spoke more firmly. "Sir, you're going to get sick like this. Do you have anywhere to go?" The old man huffed and replied in a hoarse voice, "If I did, do you think I'd be sitting here like a wet dog?" Zainab swallowed hard. She wasn't expecting gratitude, but the man's bitterness stung. Still, there was something in his eyes, behind the coldness and rudeness, that made her hesitate to leave him there. She pulled a 1,000 naira note from her pocket, nearly all she had for the day, and held it out toward him. "Here, buy something to eat or find a place to stay. Fare's all I have, but it might help." The man didn't touch the money. He just looked at it like it was the most absurd thing in the world. "Keep it. You need it more than I do. Just by your clothes, I can tell you're one of those girls who serve food so others can stuff their bellies," he said with an ironic smile. Zainab let out a small laugh, not because it was funny, but because she couldn't believe someone in worse shape still tried to show pride. "And yet I'm offering it. It's not what we have in our pockets that decides whether we can help or not. Come with me at least. I work nearby. I can find you a dry spot in the back of the restaurant. It's not much, but it's better than sitting in the rain." The old man didn't answer, but his eyes flickered for a moment. When Zainab started to stand, he muttered, "If I go with you, don't think it's out of gratitude." "I never said I expected gratitude," she replied, extending her hand to help him up. With slow, wary steps, he got to his feet, legs trembling. The rain hadn't let up, but now the two of them were under Zainab's worn-out umbrella, walking together down the flooded street of Surulere. She led him through a side alley to the back entrance of the restaurant where she worked, a simple, busy place called Grandma's Flavor. It was where she spent long hours on her feet, serving cheap meals to local workers and residents. She pointed to a wooden bench in the small storage room at the back, between sacks of rice and boxes of oil, where the old man could sit. "It's not much, but at least it's dry. When my shift ends, I can take you home. I live in a little room over in Agege. We can split a plate of food and a mattress," she said, grabbing an old towel to dry his face. "What kind of girl brings a smelly old man home like that?" he grumbled. "The kind of girl who can't stand seeing anyone treated like garbage, even if he insists on acting like it," she replied with a half-smile. The man looked at her for a few seconds, like he wanted to argue, but he just lowered his eyes and stayed quiet. He remained seated while Zainab straightened her apron and hurried back to the restaurant floor. For the next few hours, Zainab barely had time to breathe. The tables were packed with customers, the cook was shouting for plates, and the heat from the grill made her wet uniform even more uncomfortable. Still, she couldn't stop thinking about the old man. Now and then, between trays, she peeked into the back to see if he was still there. Around 2 in the afternoon during her break, Zainab dashed down the street to a small makeshift canteen in the Ohuelegba market. With the few bills she had left, she bought jollof rice and 2 pieces of fried chicken, one for her, one for the old man. While she was gone, the restaurant's atmosphere changed abruptly. A black SUV pulled up outside, and out stepped Cynthia, dolled up like a reality show star. Designer sunglasses, stiletto heels, and a tight red dress. She strutted into the dining room, where the staff immediately froze to watch her. Cynthia loved surprise visits to her fiancé's restaurant, not to eat but to mark her territory. When she walked through the back door looking for Aoife, her eyes landed on the old man sitting with his hands in his lap. Her look of disgust was instant. "What is this rag doing here?" she said loudly, as if addressing the entire restaurant. The old man calmly looked up, but said nothing. "Get out! Right now!" she screamed. "This is a business, not a shelter for stinking beggars." "My dear, there's no need to shout," the old man said gently, though his eyes showed a certain weariness. "My dear, you must be crazy. I'm not the daughter of some street trash. Now get out, or I'll call security myself." The old man shook his head slowly. "You have a dark heart, young lady. What kind of person treats an old man like this?" "The kind of person who knows her place," Cynthia replied with disdain. "And you clearly don't belong here." With trembling legs, the old man stood up and began walking to the exit, stumbling with each step, but holding on to what dignity he had left. That's when Zainab returned, clutching the food packages under her shirt. As soon as she saw the old man leaving through the back door, her expression changed. "What happened? Why are you outside, sir?" The man simply lowered his eyes and whispered, "The owner's daughter told me to leave, said I'm dirty and don't deserve to be here." Zainab froze. She clenched her fists and stormed into the restaurant. Cynthia was still in the dining room, scrolling on her phone while sitting at a table with a disgusted look, as if the air itself offended her. Zainab didn't even ask for permission. "Was it you who kicked that man out?" Cynthia looked over her glasses with disdain. "Oh, the waitress is back. Yes, it was me. And you should thank me. Beggars scare away customers. He wasn't a beggar. He was a human being. Someone who needed help. Aren't you ashamed?" "Listen here, you poor ignorant girl," Cynthia began, standing up. "This restaurant belongs to my fiancé. I'm marrying Aoife, and as far as I'm concerned, you'll never work here again." Zainab took a deep breath, her face burning. "I may have nothing, but at least I have self-respect. You don't even have that. If you think treating people like this makes you a good wife, good luck. You're going to need it." Before Cynthia could reply, Zainab had already turned her back. She walked out of the restaurant and gently took the old man's arm. "Come on, sir. I lost my job, but I don't regret it. The world needs more people who treat others with dignity," she said, her voice firm. "You're different, young lady," the old man murmured. "Very different." And so under the still grey sky of Lagos, the two walked off together, leaving behind a restaurant where arrogance reigned, but where true dignity had just walked out the door. "Zainab, what happened? You're back so fast," asked Mariam, her roommate, as she saw her friend step into their cramped studio apartment, carrying a bag with cold rice and slightly soggy chicken, her soaked uniform clinging to her skin. Zainab dropped everything on the small wooden table next to the mattress on the floor and took a deep breath. She rested her hands on her knees for a moment before answering, trying not to collapse from exhaustion and frustration. "I got fired," she said at last, still out of breath. "That old man, the one I brought to the restaurant, the boss's fiancée showed up and kicked him out like he was a stray dog. And when I stood up for him, she had me fired." "What? You've got to be kidding." Mariam's eyes widened in shock. Zainab shook her head, sitting down on the torn mattress, fighting back the tears threatening to fall. "I'm not, Mariam. She humiliated me in front of everyone, said the place belonged to her, that her fiancé owns the restaurant, called me poor, ignorant, and said I'd never step foot in there again. But the old man, he didn't say anything. He just looked at me, said I was different, nothing else. So what now?" Zainab sighed, looking at the bag of food. "Now he's here with me. I told him he could stay until he figures out where to go. And you know what? I don't regret a thing." Mariam walked over to the narrow window and peeked outside. The setting sun painted the sky orange. A heavy silence filled the room until a faint voice came from the corner. "Young lady, may I sit here on the floor?" Zainab turned and saw the old man standing at the doorway, cautiously watching, as if he didn't want to be more of a burden than he already felt he was. "Of course, sir. Come in. It's humble, but it's what I've got," she said with a gentle smile. He stepped in slowly, sitting with effort near the wall. His tired eyes scanned the small space, a broken fan in the corner, a basin of unwashed clothes, a shelf holding 2 packs of pasta and a half-full bottle of oil. "This place," he murmured, "has more warmth than many palaces I've stepped in." Zainab came over and handed him a glass of water. Then she shared the food. "It's not much, but it helps. Do you have any family here in Lagos?" The old man hesitated, chewing the chicken slowly. "I do. A son. I came here with a clear goal, to find him a good wife. The boy's old enough. He's hard-working, but still hasn't found someone with a true heart. You know how Lagos is, full of appearances, but appearances don't hold up a marriage. Zainab raised her eyebrows in surprise. Looking for a wife? For your son? That's right, he said, watching her. And ever since you held that umbrella over me, I felt like maybe I'd found the right person. Zainab coughed, choking on the rice. What? You heard me. I want you to meet my son. Just give it a chance. I know it's sudden, but I can recognize character when I see it, and yours is rare. She sat in silence, staring at the old man. For a moment she thought he was joking or maybe delusional, but his eyes were steady, calm, and full of conviction. Sir, that's a lot to take in. I don't even know your name. Call me Baba, like everyone does. And no need to decide anything now. Just think about what I said. Zainab smiled, shyly rubbing the back of her neck. Okay, Baba. I'll think about it. But first, I need to meet this son of yours. What if he's one of those guys who only wants a woman who's pretty and rich? Baba chuckled, a deep, genuine laugh. No, my son's got his head on straight. I raised him tough and wise. He may not be as handsome as those TV actors, but he's good, and he works hard. He's not rich, just a simple man fighting to get by. Really? Zainab raised an eyebrow. Now you're trying to sell me on the guy? You're practically offering a dowry already. Hey, not yet. But if you say yes, he said, breaking into laughter, making Zainab laugh too. The light mood didn't last long. Soon Baba's old phone started vibrating in the pocket of his wet coat. It was a modern, expensive model, far beyond what someone in his condition would usually have. Zainab noticed but didn't comment. Hello, the old man answered with a firm tone. Yes, I'm back. I'm in Lagos now. How are you, my son? He stood up a little and moved away to talk, lowering his voice. Zainab could only catch bits. I'm fine, don't worry, mate. I'll see you tomorrow. When he returned, he carefully put the phone away and smiled. Was that him? Yes. My son just got back from a trip today. He's running a bit of a fever. I'll go see him tomorrow. Want me to come with you? No, my dear, it's far. I just need to check on him, but I promise you'll meet him afterward. Zainab nodded. She was still suspicious about the fancy phone, but kept it to herself. That phone, she finally said. How did you get it? I thought you came from the countryside with nothing. Baba hesitated for a moment, then smiled. Oh, that? My son gave it to me. There's a lot of power outages back home, and I like to watch the evening soap operas. He got me this phone so I could still watch when the lights go out. Zainab laughed. Wow, what a sweet son. Buying a phone like that just for soap operas. He's a softie when it comes to me, Baba replied proudly. Always has been. Well, I think I want to meet this son of yours, but only after he's feeling better, and preferably not grumpier than his father, she said, giving the old man a playful nudge on the shoulder. Oh, he's grumpier than me, but he's got a bigger heart too. Zainab smiled and so did Baba. For a brief moment, despite the unfair firing and all of life's struggles, she felt strangely at peace. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long while, it didn't seem so frightening anymore. Baba, aren't you going to take anything with you? Zainab asked, as she helped the elderly man into a dryer shirt she had washed and hung up the night before. I'm only taking the essentials, he replied simply, carefully folding a small cloth and placing it in his pocket. I don't need much. Just want to see my son with my own eyes. He didn't sound well on the phone yesterday, and that's been bothering me. Zainab nodded, though she was feeling a little uneasy. Since Baba had arrived, she had treated him with respect and care, but there was still something about him that didn't quite fit the picture, something in his posture, the way he spoke, even the way he held that expensive phone. Still, she chose to trust him. Baba stepped out of the humble room in Agege with slow steps, leaving behind the only person who had welcomed him without knowing who he really was. Zainab walked him to the street, helped him into a kiki motorized tricycle, and said goodbye with a smile. Call me, okay? I want to know if he's feeling better. I will, my dear. And remember what I asked. Don't forget to think about my son. he said with a playful look before heading off. Zainab went back inside, her heart slightly heavy. She still felt the sting of the unjust firing, and worse, the weight of being unemployed with bills piling up. Hours later, Baba arrived at his destination, a luxurious mansion in Ikoyi. It was the complete opposite of the modest neighborhood where he had spent the night. The tall gates, pristine white walls, and imported cars in the driveway stood in stark contrast. He knocked firmly on the gate, waiting for a guard to answer. "What do you want here, old man?" asked one of the guards, frowning at the sight of Baba's sandals and simple clothes. "I'm here to see my son. Tell him Baba is here." The guard, suspicious, used his radio to call someone inside. After a few seconds, he responded, "Wait here." The gate opened partway, and to Baba's surprise, Cynthia appeared. The same woman who had insulted him at the restaurant. She was even more dressed up, wearing a tight designer dress and golden heels. When she saw the old man, her eyes widened before she crossed her arms arrogantly. "You again?" she snapped, her voice loud and full of disdain. "What do you think you're doing at this house?" "I've come to see my son," Baba answered patiently, standing tall despite his fatigue. "Your son?" she laughed loudly. "You must be mistaken. The owner of this house is Ife, and he's definitely not the son of some beggar like you. Tell him I'm here, he'll understand." Cynthia stepped closer, pointing a finger in his face. "If you don't leave right now, I'll have the guards throw you out." "Actually," she narrowed her eyes, "you're following me, aren't you? You crazy old man. You want to ruin my life, is that it? Disappear." Baba clenched his fists and took a deep breath. Inside, his blood boiled, but his face remained calm. "You still don't know who I am. But you will, very soon." Cynthia rolled her eyes and stormed back inside. Baba pulled out his phone and, with trembling fingers, called Ife. "Hello?" his son answered, voice full of concern. "Come home right now. I'm at the gate. I've never been so humiliated." On the other end, Ife stood up from the leather chair in his office. "I'm on my way, Dad, stay there." And he rushed out, barely hanging up the call. Less than 30 minutes later, a black car pulled up quickly in front of the mansion. Ife got out, visibly shaken, instantly recognizing his father by the gate. Seeing him in simple clothes, his face weary, made Ife's chest tighten. "Dad? What are you doing here like this? Why didn't you tell me you were coming?" "Because I wanted to see for myself who this woman is that you're thinking of marrying." Ife said nothing. His mind was spinning. "They told me some old man had shown up. I didn't imagine that." "Well, you should have. I went to the restaurant, pretended to be a nobody, sat in the storage room and waited to see how she would act. And she failed. She insulted me, threw me out like trash." Ife clenched his jaw, his expression hardening. "Cynthia did that?" "She did. And the girl who stood up for me. She was fired because of you. They let her go for doing the right thing." Ife's face turned pale. "The waitress? The one who—" "Yes, the one I told you about on the phone yesterday. She sheltered me, fed me, treated me like a father, and you fired her over a shallow woman." "Dad, I didn't know." Cynthia called me hysterical, saying the girl brought in vagrants and started a fight with her. "And you believed her, like a foolish boy. Your heart needs to learn to see past makeup and high heels." Ife lowered his head. Baba sighed deeply and placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "I want you to meet this girl, but the right way. Pretend to be poor. Let her see your character before she knows who you are." Ife looked up. "You want me to disguise myself? I want you to find out if she'll accept you for who you are, not for what you have. She did it with me without knowing who I was. You do the same." Ife thought for a few seconds, then nodded. "All right, Dad, tell me how to find her." Baba smiled, satisfied. "I have her number, but you need to do this properly. If she finds out too soon, the test is over." Ife took down the number, memorized the details, and that same evening called Zainab. "Hello, good evening. Is this Zainab?" "Yes. Who's speaking?" "My name is Ife. I'm the son of the man who stayed with you, Baba. He told me everything you did for him. I wanted to thank you personally." There was a pause on the other end. "Oh yes, he told me about you too. I hope you're feeling better." "I am. He also told me you agreed to meet me. He mentioned it, but I admit I'm still surprised by all of this. Eve smiled, though she couldn't see it. Can we set up a meeting somewhere simple, maybe Yaba Park tomorrow afternoon? That works. 2 o'clock? Perfect. When he hung up, Ife looked up at his father, who stood on the stairs with a solemn expression. Tomorrow, Dad. I'll find out if she really is everything you say she is. And maybe, Baba replied, you'll discover that real love doesn't live in luxury halls, but under an old umbrella in the middle of the rain. You must be Ife, Zainab said with a shy smile as she approached the wooden bench under the shade of a tree in Yaba Park. Ife stood up slowly, a kind expression on his face. He wore faded jeans, a simple t-shirt and worn-out sneakers. His face was clean, without the arrogant features common among men used to power. He looked exactly as he wanted to appear, an ordinary Nigerian man trying to make it. And you must be Zainab, the girl my father hasn't stopped praising, he replied, offering his hand. It's a pleasure to meet you. Zainab shook his hand lightly and sat beside him on the bench. The park was quiet that Saturday afternoon, with only a few people around. Children played in the distance, and a few vendors sold bottled water and gala apples. So, she said with a laugh, how's old Baba? He showed up out of nowhere, caused a scene at the restaurant, and then vanished like the wind. Ife laughed, shaking his head. That's just how he is, stubborn as a mule, but he was really moved by what you did for him. He called me emotional, you know. Zainab smiled and crossed her legs, adjusting the hem of her simple dress. I just did what anyone with a heart would do. Seeing an old man shivering in the rain all alone, no one deserves that. Not everyone would think like you, Eve commented, glancing at her from the side. Most people would just cross the street and pretend they didn't see anything. She shrugged. Maybe, but I wouldn't sleep well knowing I left someone behind. They sat in silence for a few moments, listening to the sounds of the park. A distant bird song, the noise of a child chasing a kite, and the soft voice of a vendor offering cold water created a calm backdrop for their conversation. Your dad told me you're a hard-working man trying to make your way, but you're still single, Zainab said, breaking the silence with a playful tone. Ife laughed, leaning back on the bench. Yeah, he has this habit of advertising me to people. One of these days he's going to sell me on credit. Zainab burst out laughing. I told him he sounded like a market woman. He showered me with so many compliments about you, I thought he was going to say you could fly and heal people. He exaggerates, but it's only because he cares about me, and because he likes you, Aoife added, looking into her eyes. Zainab looked away, blushing slightly. Look, I don't know if I'm ready for anything serious right now. I'm still dealing with a lot. I lost my job because of a lie, got humiliated by an arrogant woman, and I barely have enough to pay rent. My life's not easy. I understand, Aoife replied sincerely. Believe me, mine isn't either. I work wherever I can, odd jobs, deliveries. I even sold clothes for a while. Some nights I lie awake wondering if I'll eat the next day. Zainab studied him carefully. There was no arrogance in his words. Everything he said felt genuine. You've really been through all that. And then some, he said without going into details. But I'm fighting. I want something of my own one day. Maybe a small business, a workshop, a little shop. I just don't want to depend on anyone. That's admirable, really. And you? What are your dreams? She paused for a moment. Nothing big. I just want a stable life, a decent job, a safe home, food on the table, maybe one day a family with someone who respects me and treats me as an equal. Someone like me? He asked, smiling slightly. Zainab laughed and gave his shoulder a gentle push. Easy, warrior, this is still the first date. They both laughed and continued chatting about lighter things, Nigerian movies, the chaos of Lagos transport, favorite childhood meals. It was a simple conversation, but full of authenticity. Time flew by. As the sun began to dip behind the trees, Zainab stood and smoothed her dress. I think I should get going. It was unexpectedly nice talking to you, F.A. Can I walk you to the bus stop? You can, but just to the sidewalk. Any farther and you'll look like you're trying to come home with me, she said with a grin. Eve stood and walked beside her to the park's gate, Before saying goodbye, he looked her in the eyes and said, "Thank you for giving this a chance, for listening, and for being who you are. There aren't many people like you in the world." Zainab smiled, touched. "Tell that to your dad. He saw it first." "I will, but I want to see you again if that's okay." She hesitated for a second, then nodded. "Okay, just don't come at me with empty promises. I'm past that stage." "Deal." And as she stepped into the passing Danfo, Aoife stood at the stop, watching the vehicle disappear into the traffic and honking of Yaba. His heart was pounding, but for the first time in a long while, he felt like he had met someone real. Someone who saw him, not for what he had, or pretended not to have, but for who he truly was, and that to him was worth more than any fortune. That night, Zainab returned to her room and lay on her mattress with a quiet smile. She still didn't know what the future held, but something inside her said that this meeting hadn't been a coincidence. And somewhere in Ikoyi, Aoife told his father everything, and Baba simply smiled, murmuring, "Her heart is pure. Now all that's left is for her to see yours as it really is. And no matter how long that takes, my son, it's worth waiting for someone like her." "You did what?" Aoife exclaimed, jumping up from the couch with wide eyes as he listened to his father seated across from him in the spacious living room of the mansion in Ikoyi. "I went to the restaurant, Aoife, in disguise, like just any old man," Baba repeated firmly. "I sat in the back, dirty, soaked, and I watched. I wanted to see with my own eyes who this woman was that you said you wanted to marry." Aoife ran his hand over his face, anxious. He paced back and forth across the room. "Dad, you could have told me before doing something like that. What if something had happened? What if someone had hurt you? I can take care of myself, son, and more importantly, I saw what I needed to see." Baba folded his hands in his lap and took a deep breath before continuing. "Cynthia, that girl you defend so much, she humiliated me, treated me like a stray dog. She shouted at me to leave the restaurant, told me I was dirty, useless, that I didn't belong there." Eve froze in the middle of the room. "Are you sure about that? She called me a crazy old man, said I was a bum and would never be welcome in her life. And all of that, my son, before she even knew I was your father." Eve sank into the couch, speechless. His heart was racing. He remembered Cynthia's hysterical phone call the day before. She had said Zainab had brought vagrants to the restaurant, that she had been insulted, threatened, and was afraid. Now it all made sense. "And Zainab?" he asked, almost in a whisper. "She's the one who helped me, without knowing who I was, without knowing anything about me. She gave me food, sheltered me from the rain, shared her space. And when Cynthia kicked me out, she stood up to her. Aoife, with courage." Baba stood up slowly and stepped in front of his son. "And you," he said, his tone slightly wounded, "you believed your fiancé. You fired Zainab, sent away the only person who did the right thing." Aoife lowered his eyes, speechless. Regret burned in his chest. Baba placed a hand on his shoulder. "I'm not here to judge you, son. I just want to open your eyes. You almost gave your life to a woman who doesn't even respect a defenseless old man. How do you think she'd treat your mother if she was still alive? Our staff, or even you?" Aoife nodded slowly. "I understand, Dad. Because I really messed up, but what now? Now you do the right thing, go after Zainab, but not as the Aoife who owns a mansion. Go as an ordinary man. Let her get to know your heart the way you got to know hers." "You want me to keep up the act?" "It's not an act. It's a test. A good heart isn't impressed by wealth. If she keeps treating you with kindness while thinking you're just a regular guy, then you'll know for sure she's the right woman." Aoife took a deep breath. "All right, we'll do this the right way. But there's one detail," Baba added with a subtle smile. "She can't see you here. If she steps into this house now, she'll know everything. So, you keep seeing her. Set up simple dates, no fancy restaurants. Don't pick her up in a car. Be Aoife the worker, the hopeful guy. Live that life for now, and the truth will come later." Aoife picked up his phone, ran his fingers over Zainab's number, and looked at his father with determination. "I'm going to find out who she really is, and also show her who I can be without titles or bank accounts. That night, alone in his room, Efe called Zainab. Hello? Zainab? Good evening. It's Efe. Oh, hi, Efe. Everything okay? All good. I've been thinking about our conversation, and I wanted to know if I could see you again. Nothing formal, just talk. Listen to you. There was a brief silence, then she answered, Of course, I like talking to you. You have a rare lightness. How about tomorrow we can take a walk or sit somewhere quiet? I like that idea. Same park? Perfect. 3 o'clock? 3 it is. See you there. After hanging up, Eve stared at the ceiling of his room. He felt light, almost hopeful. For the first time, he'd have the chance to be loved for who he was, not what he owned. The next day, Efe dressed again in his simple clothes, grabbed the old phone he had set aside for this role, and went to Yaba Park. Zainab was already there, wearing a floral dress and simple flip-flops. The smile she gave when she saw him warmed his heart. You're on time, she said. And you look even prettier than yesterday, he replied sincerely. She laughed, a little embarrassed. Don't start with that smooth talk, I know the game. Eve raised his hands in mock innocence. I swear I'm being honest. They walked side by side, talking about childhood, life's struggles and dreams. Zainab shared how her mother died young, and her father disappeared afterward. She talked about how she learned to hustle as a kid, selling sweets on the street until she could land a job in a restaurant. She spoke of the pain of being unfairly fired, but without bitterness. Eve listened quietly, feeling more connected to her with each word. Sometimes I wonder why everything is so hard, she said at one point. But then I think of people like Baba, and I start to believe that maybe helping someone is the reason behind some of our battles. You have a heart of gold, Zainab, Efe said, and I'm not exaggerating. My dad saw that in you, and now I see it too. She smiled, touched. Let's see if that heart survives the day it finds out you're more stubborn than Baba. They laughed together, and for a few hours, the noisy city felt far away. Zainab had no idea who Efe really was, but in her heart, something new was growing. A quiet trust, an affection that bloomed with every simple gesture. As the sun dipped behind the buildings of Yaba, Efe knew the test had only just begun. But deep down, he already felt that Zainab was different. She was real. And that, more than any fortune, was what he had always been searching for. So you really came back, said Zainab, leaning against the small doorway of the modest restaurant, where the air was thick with the scent of hot oil and pepper. Eve smiled, holding a bag with 2 bottles of Maltina and some fried bean cakes. I promised I would, and I'm a man of my word. She let out a quiet laugh and made space for him to come in. Her shift wouldn't start for another 30 minutes, so the dining area was still empty. The kitchen buzzed with the sound of clattering pots, but out front only clean tables and stacked chairs filled the space. I brought a little snack, he said, pulling out a chair and taking the items from the bag. Look at you, a man showing up with food. You just scored some points, she joked, sitting across from him. They ate laughing, joking around and sharing stories. Zainab told him how she was nearly hit by a motorbike the week before, and Efe recalled a funny memory from school when he forgot his uniform and had to wear a kitchen apron all day. But once the laughter faded, reality crept in. Eve, Zainab began, fiddling with the bottle cap. I need to tell you something. Go ahead. She took a deep breath, resting her elbows on the table. The restaurant called me back. The manager said the owner decided to rehire me, but he wants me back as his personal assistant, not as a waitress. Wow, Efe feigned surprise, maintaining his cover. That's big. Yeah, but also strange. How do I go from fired cleaner to personal assistant overnight? And what did you decide? Zainab hesitated. I accepted. I needed the money. Bills are swallowing me whole, but something about this new boss doesn't sit right with me. Eve bit his lower lip subtly. Why do you say that? Yesterday after my shift, he called me into his office. First, he apologized for what happened before, said he trusted the wrong fiancée and that he's single now. Fine. But then, He started telling me I looked pretty, said he wanted to take me out. I shut that down real quick. Eve kept a neutral face, but inside his heart clenched. And how did he react? He said he didn't mean anything by it, that he was just being nice. Apologized again, but now I'm suspicious of everything he does. I don't know if he's being genuine or just playing me. Do you want to quit? I thought about it, but I can't. I need the paycheck. And so far, he hasn't crossed any more lines. It's just tense, you know? Eve nodded slowly. Zainab, listen, you're strong, and you have character. You've shown that more than once. Don't let anyone push you out of what you've earned. Do your job, and if he tries anything else, you put him in his place, with class. She smiled. Funny. You talk like you've known me for years. Maybe I know more than you think, he murmured, briefly glancing away. She raised an eyebrow, suspicious, but before she could ask, a co-worker walked into the cafe and called her to start her shift. I have to go. Of course, said Aoife, standing with her. Go conquer the world, and if he steps out of line, let me know. I've got friends who handle things quickly, he joked, raising his fists. Zainab laughed and gave his shoulder a playful shove. Get out of here before they think you're my bodyguard. As she disappeared behind the curtain leading to the kitchen, Eve left the restaurant with a conflicted heart. He knew she was telling the truth. She still had no idea who he really was, and that was good. But it hurt seeing her distrust him without knowing that the strange boss was him. On the way home, Eve decided to keep the act going a little longer. He wanted to see just how far her heart could go before the truth came out. A few days later, on a hot afternoon, he got a call. Hello? He answered, smiling, expecting to hear Zainab's soft voice. Eve, she said, her tone serious, I need to talk to you. What happened? I don't think I can stay at this job. The boss offered me a car and a furnished apartment, just like that, out of nowhere. That's incredible, no? It is, but also suspicious. I don't trust him, Aoife. I feel like there's another motive behind it all. What did you say to him? I was clear. I told him I didn't want anything but a respectful workplace, that I was in love with someone else. Aoife swallowed hard. In love? Yeah, she said, barely above a whisper. With you. Silence fell between them. I know it's early and maybe it's silly, but you listen to me. You support me. You make me laugh. I feel safe with you. How could I not feel something for someone like that? Eve closed his eyes, his chest tight with emotion. It's not silly, Zainab. I feel it too since the first day. So, what do we do? He took a deep breath. We keep going, our way, no rush, but with honesty. On the other end of the line, she smiled. All right, but promise me that if I ever find out you're rich, I won't end up hating you. Eve laughed. I promise. But for now, I'm just Aoife, the guy with the maltina and bean cakes. Zainab laughed too. The best combo in Lagos. And that night, though separated by neighborhoods, they both slept with peaceful hearts. They didn't yet know it, but they were getting closer to a truth that would change everything. And even so, what they had already built was rooted in what truly mattered: character, sincerity, and genuine love. The sun was already high in the sky when Zainab stepped off the danfo in front of the building where she now worked. She wore her best outfit, a light blue blouse carefully ironed, and a pair of black slacks she had bought months ago at a thrift store in Surulere. Her shoes, though worn, were clean. Her hair was tied back in a simple bun, revealing a face set with determination. She took a deep breath before entering the modern building that housed the company's headquarters. It was her first day as the CEO's personal assistant. Even though she still felt uneasy about the sudden turn of events that had landed her there, she was determined to take the opportunity seriously. The receptionist greeted her with a smile. Good morning, Miss Zainab. The boss is expecting you upstairs. You can head right up. Zainab nodded, tightening the strap of her bag on her shoulder and making her way to the elevator. As she rode up, her heart pounded. The memory of that strange conversation with the new boss A man she thought was kind but confusing in his intentions still lingered in her mind. When the doors opened, a secretary was waiting for her. "He's in his office. You can go right in," the woman said, stepping aside. Zainab knocked lightly on the door. "Come in," said a firm, familiar voice. She turned the handle carefully, stepped inside, and froze. "You?" she exclaimed, eyes wide in shock as she saw Yves seated behind a massive glass desk. He wore a light grey suit, immaculately tailored, and a gleaming wristwatch. There was nothing left of the simple man from the park, the one who talked about bean cakes and hard times. Yves rose slowly. "Zainab," he began, trying to stay calm. "I can explain." She took 2 steps back, stunned. "You lied to me this whole time. You're the owner, the CEO, the man who gave me this job. Who said he was broke, doing side gigs, struggling to get by? Yes, Zainab, but I had a reason." "What reason justifies a lie like that?" she shouted, her face flushed. "You came into my life pretending to be someone else. You made me trust you, really trust you." Yves walked around the desk, approaching her with honest eyes. "I had to know if you liked me for who I am, not for what I have. After what happened with Cynthia, after seeing how she treated my father, I was afraid to trust again." Zainab crossed her arms, fighting her disappointment. "So you tested me? Used me as some kind of experiment?" "No," he said quickly. "That's not what this was. From the moment I saw you defending my father, I knew you were different, but I needed to be sure." She stared at him, eyes brimming with tears. "You made me believe you were just a regular guy who wanted to be heard, and I believed you. I opened up to you, and now I find out I was pouring my heart out to my own boss." Yves tried to step closer, but she moved away. "I was going to tell you, I swear. But every time we talked, I liked you more, and I was afraid of losing that." She took a deep breath, her eyes now firm. "You rehired me, Yves, put me here beside you as your assistant, and I took this job because I thought I earned it, not because of pity or a game." "It wasn't pity, Zainab. You earned this position. I saw your strength, your resilience. This job is yours by merit. It has nothing to do with how I feel about you." She looked at him for a long moment. Then she said, her voice quiet but steady, "I don't know if I can work here knowing all this. I need time to think." "Zainab, please." "No, let me go. I'll decide tomorrow if I'm coming back." Yves didn't argue. He simply nodded, honoring her space. She left the room with quick steps, her heart conflicted. That night, lying on her mattress, Zainab couldn't sleep. Her roommate Mariam watched her quietly for a while before asking, "What happened? You came back looking off today." Zainab told her everything: the meeting with Yves, the revelation that he was the real CEO, the shock, the disappointment, the sense of betrayal. "He lied, Mariam, and now I don't know if I can ever trust him again." Mariam thought for a moment before replying. "But everything he did, until now, he treated you well, respected you, listened to you. All of that was real, wasn't it?" Zainab nodded slowly. "It was, but behind it was a lie. Sometimes people make mistakes when they're trying to protect themselves, and he came out of an engagement with a woman who almost wrecked his family, right? Maybe he just did what he thought he had to do to avoid getting hurt again." Zainab sighed, staring at the ceiling. "I just wish he'd been honest from the beginning." The next day, when she arrived at work, Zainab went straight to the CEO's floor. She knocked firmly on his office door. "Come in," Yves' voice said, quieter this time. She entered, walked to the desk, and stood tall. "I thought a lot about this, Yves, and I've decided I'm staying." His eyes lit up with relief. "Really?" "Yes, but only on one condition. From now on, everything between us is honest. No tests, no games, no secrets." Yves stood, stepping around the desk. "You have my word. And one more thing," she added, raising a finger. "In here, I'm your assistant, professional, no blurred lines." "Of course, total professionalism," he replied with a small smile. Zainab took a deep breath and extended her hand. "Then let's get to work, Mr. Yves." He shook her hand with respect and care. "Welcome back, Miss Zainab." As she stepped out of the office to begin her duties, Aoife sat down, watching the door close behind her. Deep down, he knew he still had a lot to earn back. But at least now everything was in the open. And maybe, just maybe, the truth, after everything, was still the path to the love he'd been searching for all along. The sun was already high in the sky when Zainab stepped out of the boss's office and into her small adjoining room, her voice breathless and excited as she called, "Babe, you won't believe what just happened." On the other end, Aoife, still disguised as Babe in her contacts, answered with his usual calm and playful tone. "Tell me." "What now?" "My boss called me in again. I thought it was going to be another weird conversation, but actually he told me that as his personal assistant, I'm entitled to a company car and a furnished apartment near the office." There was a brief pause on his end before Aoife responded with practiced ease. "Wow, that's amazing, Zainab. You deserve it." I almost fainted. But you know what made me hesitate? What? I got scared. I thought he was trying to buy me. I looked him straight in the eye and said, "If you think this is to charm me as a woman, forget it. I'm in love with someone else, and out of respect for both of us, let's keep things professional." Eve had to hold back a nervous laugh. "And what did he say?" He went quiet, kind of stunned, but then nodded, said he respected my decision. "You really held your ground, huh? And here you thought I was soft, but honestly, the whole thing freaked me out. I even considered quitting again." "Don't do that," Aoife said, his voice gentler now. "You worked hard to get there. Don't give up over suspicion, just focus on your work. And if he crosses the line, you'll know how to handle it." Zainab sighed. "Yeah, you're right. But listen, I owe you a dinner. You've helped me so much, listened, advised me. Now it's my turn to spoil you." "You? Spoil me?" He laughed. "Yes, I already picked the place. A nice restaurant over in Victoria Island. It's not crazy expensive, but definitely fancier than the food stalls we usually hit. I'm in, but only if you let me split the bill." "No way, Aoife. That's settled." That Saturday, Aoife picked her up at her house, on foot, just as they'd agreed. He wore simple but neat clothes. Zainab had on a flowing blue dress and a neatly tied headscarf. She looked beautiful, no exaggeration. On the walk to the restaurant, they laughed and chatted like always. She told him funny stories from work, and he listened as if it were the first time he'd met her. At the restaurant, they were seated near a window. Zainab made sure to take the menu first, order the food, and manage the bill. "Today, I'm the boss," she joked. "If you order expensive wine, I'll leave you washing dishes." The food arrived and they ate peacefully. When dessert was served, Aoife fell silent for a few moments before setting his fork aside. "Zainab, I have something really important to ask you." "What?" He looked at her, a different light in his eyes. "Will you marry me?" Zainab froze. Her fork slipped from her hand, and she blinked several times, as if trying to confirm what she'd just heard. "What did you say?" "That's right. I want to spend my life with you. I've never met anyone like you. You taught me the value of kindness, loyalty, courage. I've truly fallen in love with you." Tears welled in her eyes. "But Eve, I know it's soon, but life doesn't always wait, Zainab, I'm sure. I just need to know if you feel the same." She covered her face, overwhelmed. Yes, Aoife. I fell in love with you before I even knew your full name. Yes, I want to marry you." Aoife took her hands, relieved. The whole restaurant seemed to disappear. There was only them. "I can't wait to tell Baba," she said, laughing through tears. "He'll say, 'I knew it, my daughter. Didn't I tell you my son is perfect?'" Aoife joked, making her laugh harder. A few days later, Zainab got a call from Baba. "My daughter, come see me this Saturday. I want to show you where I live. Give me that honor." She agreed, excited. Baba gave her the address, and on Saturday, Zainab took a taxi. But as they neared the location, something felt off. The streets were wide, the houses huge, automatic gates, private security guards. It was the same upscale neighborhood where her boss lived. "This must be wrong," she muttered, suspicious. The taxi stopped in front of a grand mansion with high walls and a pristine garden. "Are you sure this is it?" she asked the driver. "This is the address you gave me." "It's correct," he said, turning off the engine. Zainab stepped out, confused, and called Baba. "Hello? Baba? I think I'm at the wrong place. I'm standing in front of a mansion in Ikoyi." "You're in the right place, my daughter. Come in." The door's open. With hesitant steps, she entered. A guard greeted her with a respectful smile and opened the massive front door. Baba stood in the living room, wearing traditional attire and a proud smile. "Have a seat, my daughter. I have something to tell you." Zainab sat on the luxurious sofa, trying to make sense of it all. "I lied to you," he began. "I told you my son was poor, that we lived in a modest area and he did odd jobs. I wanted to test you." Zainab's mouth fell open. "A test? But why?" "Because after seeing what a wealthy, heartless woman did to my son, I needed to know if someone could still love a man for who he is, not for what he has." She leaned back, trying to absorb it all. "So, your son is really—" "Yes, the same man who took you to eat bean cakes in the park. The same man who listened to you every night. The same man who asked you to marry him." It hit her. Ife is the CEO and the humble man, all at once. Baba nodded with a calm smile. "And now that you know the truth, do you still accept him?" Zainab closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them steady. "Yes, I still accept him. Now, more sure than ever." Baba clapped his hands joyfully. "What a joy, my daughter. I knew your heart was pure." Months later, Lagos came to a stop for a special wedding, not for its luxury, but for the love that radiated from it. Zainab walked into the ceremony in an elegant yet simple white dress, wearing a smile brighter than any jewel. Ife stood at the altar, tears in his eyes and his heart full of gratitude. Baba watched from the front row, smiling like someone who had known all along. As the guests danced and celebrated, no one smiled more than the couple who had once met in the rain under a broken umbrella with open hearts. The poor waitress and the CEO's son, a real story built with soul, and as Baba would say, looking up at the sky, "When the heart is pure, not even fate dares to get in the way."